Hi, this is Daniel Posney, and you're listening or watching Shifting Perspectives. And the way that I approach this is a combination of the metaphysical or spiritual and the practical. So I love expansion and also being pragmatic. So there's a part of me that loves to expand into things that just kind of, it's hard to explain, but just kind of opens up my heart, open and open and open. Could this be true? Could this be true? The way that I've been thinking about the world and my life, has it been constrictive? And could I kind of open that up and explore different possibilities? And I was in a meditation this morning, and I was listening to this thing called Soul Perk, and it's Purkh, and it's this meditation or this chant that Indian women do to help their husband awaken. So the idea is that if they chant this 11 times, then their husband will become enlightened. But it can be used for different purposes. So I used it for my wife, not for her to become enlightened, for her to become healed, or at least that I am in the reality that she is healed. And I'm listening to this, and it just starts to have me question what really is reality, what really is true. And that's kind of the way that I look at most things: is that really true? Or do I have a limited scope on what I believe about this thing? Is my feeling about something distorted? So if I look at this idea about blame and the way that people show up in our lives, am I looking at this in a more protective, egoic, restricted way of looking at things? And if I think about the way that I've been taught and conditioned in the world, it's a certain way of looking at the world, and it pertains to our world. But is that necessarily the truth? So that's why I'm just so excited about doing videos like this all the time, because I want to explore a higher possibility. And I guess the thing that motivates me is when I get to the rest of to the end of my life, and I look back at my life, am I going to say, gosh, I wish I was a little bit more serious? Or I'm so glad that I protected myself? Or am I going to say, I'm so glad that I explored different possibilities? For one, so I don't have to come back and do this whole thing all over again. Two, so that I realized the most expansive, enjoyable experience that I could have in this life. So the way that I want to look at blame and that kind of thing, it reminds me of being in a consciousness called victim consciousness. So the reason why I feel this way, or the reason why I feel hurt or abused or suppressed or oppressed, is because this person said or did this thing. And there's a real reality, there's a real reason for that, and there's the real emotion and pain and suffering behind that. But to stay in that is something that I want to pull myself out of. I want to recognize the emotions and the feelings and the suffering and the pain that I did have. This is an emotional world. So it's for me to recognize that and not run away from it and not block it out with any kind of spiritual bypass. So I want to know that emotion and feel it, but stay out of any victim consciousness or blame on the other person. And I know that it's so real and frustrating to me that I can't blame things on other people, because I've gotten so used to it. I've been brought up this way, not by direct instruction, by of the world. That's just what we do. And we see it in movies, we hear it in songs, we see it out in the world. We see court cases. It wasn't me, it was this other person. And it's just all made to feel like it's a normal way of being. But if you're not wanting to be the normal sheep, if you will, the normal collective consciousness. So what I mean by that is there's a sort of a default consciousness that the world is projecting. And there's a majority of people, but less and less, majority of people fall into that default consciousness. Listen to the news, follow what the government says, pay attention to things that fill up your egoic needs, make yourself look this way, those are all kind of the default consciousness. That's where this default consciousness is kind of heading. But if you're like me and Jonathan and some of my other friends, we kind of want to look at the reality and not the distorted reality. So when I think about blame, that's a distorted reality. That's one that I really want to look at and say, okay, why do I blame these people? One is, this is something that's not really talked about, but I like going really deeper on this. The reason why we blame is because we're paying attention to our egoic mind, or our egoic identity. And that's just the way it rolls, is it tends to project outwards any fault or any responsibility and that kind of thing. But it's the nature of the beast kind of thing. So if you can imagine that there's this being that is always trying to survive and identify itself and protect itself, it's not going to live in love. It's going to live in protection. And part of that protection is blaming outwards. So, but that's not even the problem. The problem isn't that there's this aspect of me called the egoic identity that lives in blame and shame and regret and resentment and all that. The problem is that I have identified myself with it and believed it and feed it with the things that come out of my mouth and the thoughts that I hold on to. So the way for me to stop blaming is just to start to take radical responsibility for my thoughts, my beliefs, and my actions. And that's not an easy thing to do when you live in a world that doesn't really promote that. But if you're not a normal person, then maybe this is something that you want to, to me, it's kind of the most challenging thing that I've ever done. I've done lots of physical challenges. I've been in the military. I've done triathlons. I've done all kinds of crazy, life-threatening kind of things. But this is the most challenging thing, is to say, okay, pull it back to me. Why am I feeling this way? I know that this person did or said something that hit a button, but why? What does this bring me back to? And that's how I can start to, take radical responsibility and start to finally heal and integrate what I've had inside of me. So what role are people filling in our life? And this is just another metaphysical, spiritual idea that is promoted, that can't be proven, but it definitely makes me feel more empowered and more responsible and more alive. If I say, my idea about God and the world and life has been really limited, what if I expanded that? What if I looked at that the world or the universe is projected outwards from me? I don't know how this happens, but what if the world is projected out towards me in that sliver of a version that I tend to live every day? And in that sliver of that version, I see the world in this particular way. Or if you want to go even deeper, God sees the world through my sliver of perception. So in that sliver of perception, then I start to attract certain frequencies, certain events, certain hostilities, and certain conversations because of the vibration of consciousness that I carry. Let me make sure that I'm explaining this correctly or understandably, because I know that I can get caught up in words from Sedona and what I do every day. So I want to make sure that it's really clear. The thoughts that I hold mostly, the beliefs that I carry, that I've chosen to carry within me as a person, as Daniel, and the actions that I take and the things that I involve myself in with, that's what you could just call that the vibration of you, the consciousness of you. And because of that vibration and what's called the law of attraction, you will tend to attract certain things that are in the similar vibration, or you could even say that you are in agreement with. So here's a radical way of looking at something. Let's take COVID. Or just being sick or ill. I have an idea about this that I hold as my knowing, and it goes like this. You don't have anything in you that can cause an illness in me unless I'm in agreement with it. You don't have anything in you that could cause harm or pain and suffering in me unless I'm in agreement with it. I know that's really radical to some people, but I want to expand my scope of who I am And you see that you feel the feeling of that as when you make that statement, there's a real determination of who I am. And it's definitely not any kind of victim consciousness. And it's not easy, but it really pulls me back into, I may be sick from what you have, or I may have feel pain and suffering from what you give to me or what you project towards me. But I have a choice. Do I stay in victim consciousness and blame you and just go out to the world and just keep on blaming every single person for the pain and suffering that I have? Or do I pull back and say, how can I change this? How can I change the chemical responses that happen in my brain so that feelings and emotions get triggered or not triggered in my body? How can I take radical responsibility for that and say, okay, what's going on here? How can I shift this? So then if you take that part and then you expand it to even more, the next layer is, I'm here to do something, or I'm here to learn something, or I'm here to experience something. Is probably the highest one that I want to stay with. I'm here to experience something, or even, I guess, higher. God is here to experience through me some theme, some form of experience. So if that's the case, then I will, God, my higher self, will project people in front of me, or I'll attract people with certain frequencies that are in agreement with me to cause me to stay on track with the experience that my soul is meant to have. So let me make sure I'm really clear about this. So I'm walking along the world and I'm going through my life, and all of a sudden someone shows up and makes me feel a certain way. One, there's some agreement there, frequency wise and consciousness wise, that I've attracted them in front of me. Two, think of it this way. It's me and another body showing up in front of me saying, you've got something in you and it's not really serving you, not really helping you in this journey. It's kind of taking you off track a little bit. So I want to show that to you, so in front of you, so that they'll look at that. Our old self is just going to have a reaction and get pissed off at this person. But our new self that has these different tools and different awareness about things starts to look at itself and starts to go, could it be that I have a certain trigger about me or insecurities about me when people say and do certain things? Could it be that those insecurities are connected in with my childhood? Could it be that those things that affected me in my childhood actually go beyond my childhood into the womb or before the womb or another life? I have no idea. All I know is that I'm getting affected by this, and I want to go to something that feels much better than what I'm experiencing. So there's this movie that just happened called Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I won't give the whole thing away, but there's a scene in there that Valerie, my wife, and I were just kind of tapping into today. And there's a scene in there about these two rocks. And again, without giving too much away, the rocks have consciousness, and I'll just leave it at that. And Valerie was saying, what if that when someone has a tumor in their body and the tumor gets removed or goes away in whatever case, that we know that energy never goes away. It may dissipate, but it goes into another form because there's nowhere for it to go. When you burn a fire, the energy that's created from burning that wood goes up as heat, and that heat is never really lost, but it goes out there and it affects the cold air, and it goes, like a butterfly flaps its wings, right? So if the energy of that tumor is dissipated or goes away, it goes away somewhere. She had this idea, Valerie said, what if the energy of that tumor or the consciousness of that tumor goes into a moonstone in the city of Cambria, or in the town of Cambria, where moonstones are found on the beach. Now imagine that someone is walking down the beach and they see this little stone that was once a tumor, and it decided to be a moonstone now. And someone picks it up and says, oh, aren't you so beautiful? I just want to take you home with me. I tear up when I think about that. That at one time, that energy was a tumor or something that someone hated, or someone said, I don't want this. And then it got transmuted into something else. And I know this is not something that I can prove. I know this is very impractical. But just spending some time in that, just exploring that, doesn't that make your heart just go? It just, for me, it just expands into not understanding. I don't understand shit in this world. But I do know that when I start to explore this, my heart starts to wonder. It starts to explore on its own and starts to expand. And that to me feels good. So what if I brought myself out of blame and out of this normal way of being and looking at people as my adversary, looking at people as my challenger, instead of looked at everyone here on the planet to love, that loves and supports me, but they're not supporting my egoic needs. They're not supporting me staying the way I am and staying in my pain and my suffering and staying in my victim consciousness and my blame. What if every single person in my sliver of reality, in my sliver of my perception of the universe that I'm in, every single person that interacts with me, what do you have for me? What am I here to learn from you? You want to piss me off and make me angry and see what's inside of me? Okay. You want me to project love out to the world by your actions, by your heart, by your words? Okay. I want to be there too. It's just, I'm inviting myself through you to stay out of blame, to use that self-inquiry to look at, why am I blaming this person? Really, what is this person making me feel? Do I already have this inside of me without this person? This feeling of insecurity, this feeling of being controlled, is it already inside of me without this person? Or have I had this feeling all my life? Can I stop blaming my partner that I have right now? Can I stop blaming them for any of the negative feelings that I have and realize that I probably had those feelings before, way before. And I carried them along with me, and I've been blaming every person that triggers that inside of me. I know how difficult this is. I know it's so hard. It's challenging for me still to not blame Valerie for, making me feel a certain way. And it's like, it's so funny. It's like, oh shit, man, I gotta pull back again and not blame her because how she's making me feel right now is this something that I'm very familiar with. She's not the source of it. But what it causes me to do, this is the cycle. Someone causes a trigger in you, you have a reaction. And what we normally do is we have the reaction, we set a condition, like a limiting condition. I will never do that again. I will never open my heart up again. I will never put myself out there again. If you knew how much time you had left on this earth, you might think twice about that. So the next step is to have someone trigger you and you start to have a reaction. And then you add in this extra step, this inner work. How is this making me feel? Where does this come from? How can I heal this? How can I accept this part of myself and feel myself more whole and complete and love myself? And then the next step is blessing the person that triggered you. Thank you so much for bringing that up. That sucked. Thank you for bringing that up. But where it got me was more awareness about myself, moving more into love instead of less blaming and hate and resentment and all that stuff. But you have a choice. You have a choice of listening to your egoic mind that wants to keep you in that, wants to make great arguments to blame this person. So amazing, the arguments that I get from my own mind. So convincing. But inside of me, there's something even stronger than those arguments. And it's that light of loving awareness. No matter how strong my mind wants to be to make these arguments, it's like it's a great litigating attorney. It has a great story. No matter how strong that story is, though, no matter how strong the litigation is, that light of loving awareness trumps it all. Because in that blame, In that resentment, in that litigation, is the light of loving awareness. This is the only reason why you know blame and you know anger and you know resentment is because there's awareness, because there's the light of loving awareness in the blame, in the anger, in the resentment. There's the light of loving awareness. And I know that's a, but how else can it be felt without awareness? How else can you know that it's there without awareness? I know that's deep. It blows me away, and I start thinking about that. But the reason why I like kind of going into something like that, because it kind of breaks through the barriers of my mind, and it starts to causing me to question what I've held so strongly, that I should blame this person. I should blame my mother. I should blame my father. If my father didn't do this, then this would have happened. If my mother didn't do would have done this wouldn't have happened. All that. And that's true. Maybe. I'm not really sure. So let's summarize. Stop blaming. Just stop. As Bob Newhart would say, just stop. No, really, it's just questioning who is the one that's blaming? Who is the one that wants to do that? That's really the shortcut to the whole enlightenment game. Who is the one that's blaming? Who is the one that feels hurt? Who is the one that feels resentment? Start to pull away from that. It's kind of my core message, I guess. Happy 4th of July. Happy day of feeling independent and sovereign. Have a wonderful day. I love you. Thank you. Bless you.